I don't understand why critics didn't rate this very well, but here's my unpopular opinion. I think this film is better than last year's Superman, and I'll explain why in a moment.
Hey, I was just touching base to see when you think you might be coming back. You know, I'm just worried that you're not going to find your stride here if you keep going off-world all the time, Kara. I'm worried you're not going to find your people.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, Clark. I have no people. Home is wherever you are, buddy.
Hey, my name is Alex, and if you're new to the channel, I talk about films and TV in a more conversational way. The goal is simple, to help you decide whether something deserves your cinema ticket, your streaming subscription, or just a couple of hours of your life. So, let's talk about Supergirl. Now, the reason this works slightly better than Superman is that the story sticks to what it sets out to do from the beginning. We're introduced to Kara Zor-El, who's Superman's cousin, played by Millie Alcock. She's in her early 20s, drifting from one planet to another as a lost and hopeless soul. She lost her home planet and still hasn't figured out how to deal with the grief. So she goes on something of an intergalactic pub crawl, traveling from one bar to another, getting drunk. In one of these pubs, she saves a young girl called Ruthye, played by Eve Ridley, who some sci-fi fans might recognize her from Netflix's Three-Body Problem. Ruthye is on a mission to avenge her murdered family by hunting down the Brigands, which is a gang of outlaws responsible for their murder and also their leader, who's called Krem of the Yellow Hills, which is fairly bland leader, to be honest. So when Krem also injures Supergirl's dog, Crypto, Kara now has to track him down because he possesses the antidote. So Ruthye joins her. They now share the same goal, find Krem, capture him, and make him pay for what he has done. The rest of the film follows them from one adventure to another as they meet various different characters, both good and bad, and gradually develop a friendship that feels almost like a relationship between sisters. And that simplicity is what holds the film together, because otherwise there isn't much else to shout about, to be honest, in this film. The cast does it best with a fairly flimsy script, although Supergirl's self-deprecating attitude starts to wear thin after a while. And what doesn't work for me is how little the film does make us connect emotionally with its main character. And that is strange because Ruthye has genuinely powerful mission with very little chance of succeeding. Supergirl's motivation is a bit more simple. It largely revolves around her saving her dog, so the whole thing sometimes feel like John Wick set inside the Star Wars universe. And this is really does feel like Star Wars because there are different alien species all over the place in all shapes and sizes, strange planets and characters speaking unfamiliar languages. There's nothing necessarily wrong about that, but it just feels very different than the usual Superman fare. The action sequences, though, are decent when they arrive. I was worried of that overbearing editing that we see in Superman when there is so much quick cutting for every half a second that it'll make you dizzy and leave you unable to understand what is happening on the screen. Thankfully, there is much less of that here. Some of the slow motion sequences are actually used well, and the fact that Supergirl isn't completely invincible all the time places her in genuine danger and makes the stakes feel more relevant. So that's a good part. And I'm not saying this is a perfect film either or some grand rejuvenation of the Superman franchise. But the simplicity of its central storyline puts it ahead of Superman, which tries to follow too many storylines at once. If you remember from last year, Superman introduces meaningful ideas about war and power and the responsibility of that power, and it just quickly abandons them in favor of CGI creatures and the multiverse chaos and some humor that's trying to be funny. And compared with that, Supergirl is definitely worth the ticket price. It's an easy watch, it's fun, it has some cute characters, and Millie Alcock is definitely the right choice for the role. The action sequences are decent and you won't feel as though you have wasted your time or money. It is just difficult to imagine how much of this film will stay with you. When Supergirl will appear again in the future in a future installment, you'll probably need to watch a recap to remember what happened in this film. I'll see you next time.